Okay. Okay. You ready? Whenever you are. I have to click. Yes. If not, I'll just click both of them. And if not, we'll be like, sorry guys, we have technical difficulties. Okay. You ready? Redaction's watching. You gotta go. Okay. I can't hear you. Just go. Okay. Just go. Hello, everybody, and welcome to our event. Thank you for being here. Yeah, thank you for being here. My name's Sophia. I'm Noah. And then that's our tech guy in the corner, Bryson. All three of us are full IB diploma candidates here at South. We're all juniors, all in orchestra, and we all met and have become friends through our like ASB student government. So, um, yeah, and we're just gonna get started by doing some. Oh, are we missing a slide? Did we delete a slide? So we are missing a slide, but we're just gonna do it by memory instead. So we just wanted to start off with some recap, kind of talking about what. Sorry, I'm so sorry. Okay, so yesterday there was a Salem Kaiser like public school board meeting, and I know that we might have some people in here that spoke at that, and me and Noah weren't there in person, but we both watched from the live stream, and every single person did an amazing job at just I don't know, but it was just so moving what you guys said, especially in the 3 minute like time segments that you had. And I just, I don't know, it was just like really great to watch. But, and then something that got brought up was the lack of understanding from the district regarding the nurses and how in the first round of budget cuts, they said that they weren't going to touch any licensed or classified like staff positions, like staff that work with students in schools, but they cut 33 of licensed slash classified staff positions and only 7 from the admin. So we just wanted to talk about that before we get started. And we're going to start with some of our important terms. I can't click it. Okay. Oh, that was the slide that we just ran through. Um, one of the other topics was behavioral issues in elementary schools, and there was one specific teacher, and I'm so sorry, I don't remember her name, but she works in an elementary school here in the district, and she spoke about how she didn't have enough time to do what she was hired to do, which is teach, because she's just spending so much time working with kids who have behavioral issues. And I have a little sister who is in second grade at Lee Elementary, and she was talking about how the second graders there aren't able to go through the curriculum at the pace that they need to get everything done by the end of the school year. And I just think about that how that personally relates to my younger sibling, and I just don't want that for her, which I don't think is too much to ask, but we're going to get started by some important terms. So these are some important terms that may or may not be in the rest of the presentation, but for small group discussion, they might be helpful to know. At each table, there should be at least one union member who can answer questions about any of the things we say, or if you have other specific questions. So yeah, here's that. Yeah. We good? Mm-hmm. So this is kind of our event timeline, kind of what we're going to be going over in our presentation. Each thing that is underlined corresponds with something in a packet on your table. So that has so it has the list of terms, it has a table that we made for one of our slides, and it also has the current bargaining status as of early January. So the first thing we're going to be talking about is class size, which as students here in the district, we have seen has affected us all the way since 5th grade. Fun fact, me and Noah met in 5th grade in an advanced math class. And what happened was that 5th grade, they put us in 3 separate 5th grade classes. And then like 2 to 3 weeks into the school year, made like another class because all of those three classes were just so stacked with students that they had to hire last minute another teacher and make another class.
So in high school, we see this in all of our classes. So we've had classes that have had 40 students. I've also had classes that only have 17. And as IB students, we don't see this as much as I did last year. So my first semester Spanish class last year had 40, second semester only 18, and now the majority of my classes sit around 20 students because as the classes get harder, the numbers go down. Um, so through some outside research, we found these bullet points about how class size impacts students directly. And Oregon ranked fifth for the largest class sizes nationally as of, I believe, 2 years ago. So I don't know if that number has changed, but that is our most recent bullet point. This table we made from Oregon Department of Education's 2022-2023 report on class size. I don't love the numbers that were given because 26 to 35 is a very wide range. I've had classes with 26 and I've had classes with 35, but those were grouped together. Um, so we put together the percentages of how many of our classes that was, which is a lot. Um, so that's just some like extra extra data for our class size. And this, as all of our teachers know, is one of the largest issues because it's really hard to teach a class with that many students. It's way easier to teach 15 kids than 30.
Not only that, but also Um, yesterday, another thing that was mentioned is how like student communication or sense of belonging was one of the most important things that the community said like was their most important takeaway from the four goals I believe that the district had. And a sense of belonging not only comes from like the student community, but it also especially comes from our staff and the staff that are able to create a personal connection. There's a lot of students I'm so sorry. There's a lot of teachers that are my personal teachers here tonight, and I believe that most of them have absolutely made an effort to make that personal connection, which is one of the reasons I enjoy their class the most. And so, following that is just caseload, which is like how much a teacher has to take on in their job. And Oregon does not have a maximum caseload size in schools. So, which means that even if a teacher gets hired, just kind of thinking they're going to deal with your average, probably like 26 students per class, we've seen that our counselors, for example, have 2 times the national ratio of students that they have to work with a day. And our special education teachers have 3 times, and our nurses also have 3 times, which is just too many.
Safe learning environments is a big thing teachers have been talking about this year and has caused many educators to leave both the district and their profession. So this Salem Kaiser has one of the highest student caused injuries to teacher rates in the nation. And we, Cass.
So, a lot of people, when you're thinking of safe learning environments, you're kind of thinking of like COVID-19 and like post pandemic, like when we had to go back with masks. But it's so much more than that. Specifically here at South, like me personally, I haven't seen that many like physical injuries, like Noah was saying, the student to teacher injury rate. I haven't seen that many physical ones, but that's also because the group of students I put myself around wouldn't do that. But there's been just like at school, like a lot of like verbal aggression to our teachers, just like in the middle of class. We've had students just like banging on the doors or yelling in the hallways, just doing stuff that a lot of teachers didn't really see pre-pandemic. Um, but the lack of staff and other resources limits the ability to help students in the need. That is mainly highlighting our nurses and our campus safety staff.
So that like directly correlates with the um, caseload size we just discussed, that we can't help everybody because there aren't enough staff to help all of the students that we have. So our ratios are so low that it's harder to support students in need now, which we see in our own school.
Yeah, going back to that third bullet point where it says like other high caseloads among counselors and other support staff make it extremely difficult for students in crisis to receive necessary support. I know I keep bringing it up a lot, but it's just because of how high of an importance it has, and it's our nurses. Yesterday, there was a nurse for the public comment for the school board meeting yesterday that I mentioned at the beginning, mentioned how her son um, like there wasn't a nurse when he went to the office and he has type 1 diabetes. And although he's a high schooler where he can just give himself his insulin shot, like his I don't know the medical term, but like his insulin rate was going down and he like didn't know what to do and he was just sitting in the office and the only person in the office was office staff that isn't medically trained to help that student with his needs. And like there's a lot of students with other medical cases like that or that just have type 1 diabetes but they're younger, like our elementary and some middle school students that have to have a nurse give them their shot. They can't give it to themselves. And if those nurses aren't there, it's it's extremely problematic and they have to receive that necessary support.
So our next big topic is educator workload, which we split into two smaller. So prep time and independent scheduling, which we have a lot of experience with. Go ahead, take.
So for our first one, prep time is a thing that teachers have been fighting for a really long time. I know that something that me and Noah looked at is that like elementary school teachers specifically, like what I mentioned with earlier, between dealing with not only actually making their lesson plans, but also not being able to teach and having to redo their lesson plans or set it back because of the behaviors that they have to deal with. It's cutting into their prep time, and that there's some teachers that only have like an hour of prep time, but that includes their lunch. So really, they're either just working while they're having their lunch and their lunch, like we talk about how important mental health is. That's not only in our students, that's also in our teachers, especially with how high their caseload is. They should at least be able to have their 30-minute lunch like minorly relaxed. And the fact that teachers are having to work, like not only use all of their prep time but go into their lunch is unacceptable. And so we kind of just went over some basic things. So, like, obviously, teachers use their prep time to plan and educate for upcoming lesson plans. And, like we talked about before, like the personalized touch. So, like, individualized feedback for students. And I know a lot of teachers, especially last year when we had the biggest class sizes that me and Noah were talking about, like, we did not receive that much individual feedback just because, not because the teachers don't care, but because they have to so much to get through and then they just have to move on and keep teaching us to meet the curriculum by the end of the year.
So independent scheduling, this is about teachers having a choice on what classes they teach mostly and if they are separate classes or not. So for high school, recently post-pandemic, they switched to embedded honors for high schoolers. And this has been really bad for us, for our friends, for everybody involved. For us, that meant taking classes with students who wouldn't take an honors class, and then our teachers trying to teach two separate things at once, but they really couldn't because you have such a range of students that you're working with. It was always for me, like in our English class, it was write this essay as a whole class, but then it was if you're embedded honors, just do more. But there was never any explanation on what do more meant. So I would be writing extra paragraphs or stressing about was this good enough. This also impacted our grading system. So to have an A in an embedded honors class, you had to have a 95 rather than a 90 that you would have to have in a regular honors class. Here at South, this was a big thing because our honors classes were always meant to help prepare us for the IB program. And all three of us, as well as our IB friends in the audience, will tell you that we felt very unprepared when we started our IB classes this fall.
Yeah, so I know there's at least 4 students that are in the audience right now that could definitely tell you the student feedback that starting the IB diploma is meant to be a challenging and rigorous course. It's extremely more rigorous if you've never heard of the correct definition of the word like hyperbole before. Which thank you to Miss Lip for teaching us that. But it shouldn't have been on her. It should have definitely been something that had been introduced to us way before. Because it's already, like I said, it's already extremely difficult, and the lack of preparation that they want to achieve a higher education, or that they just want to extremely challenge themselves in their courses versus students who just wanted to pass their classes, which I'm not saying one is right and one is wrong, but combining both of the students in the same class and having it with a teacher that doesn't have prep time to make those lessons plans, doesn't have time to give individualized feedback, and then can't make that personal connection with students, all of those combined is a mess, for lack of better wording.
Oh, because I was like, yikes. So professional autonomy, this is describing that teachers don't really have a or staff, licensed staff in general, don't have much of a say in district decisions, even though the district decisions directly impact educators and students more than anybody else. So teachers just want to be able to have decisions made on their behalf that reflect how they feel.
That they deserve in any way at all. And um, a point on the board is that SKPS teachers, the majority of them all have bachelors, but some additionally have a master's degree, and that our educators earn a salary about 26% lower than what they would qualify in any other industry. And with this and other issues of just how high the caseload is and their work environment, and specifically with with younger teachers who may be starting a family or trying to buy a house, average adult stuff, end up leaving the district or profession as a whole.
My parents are both teachers and have taught for 22 years. This is their, I believe, eighth year in the district, and my parents feel that they have reached what they feel they can get by on. This was our first summer where my parents didn't worry that we wouldn't have enough money to get through August. And so much so that my parents, who are friends with first year, second year teachers, were helping pay for rent or groceries because those staff don't get paid until the end of September or beginning of October, even though they are required to be working in early August, which is a big thing in my family. I know there's been lots of discussions about be getting paid for the work we do in August in September. Um, so that's a big thing, and I've seen it happen in my family, and I know it happens for every teacher. So yeah. So now we've scheduled 5 minutes. We not super strict 5 minutes. On every table there's a packet that has the current bargaining status. If you just want to read through that, there's also the sheet of QR codes, and there's a QR code, it's also on the screen, that goes to the same packet digitally if that's easier for you. And we also have two large print copies if anybody needs that.
Okay, guys. Sorry. So we're just gonna go back and talk about one little thing before we move on to like general questions. And
Okay.
so going back to the livable wage topic, there's a keyword that we talked about in our like important vocabulary slides, which is COLA, which stands for cost of living adjustment, which has been especially important these last year, 2 years, because of the inflation that's been going on just here in our country or in the world. And so, in the article that you just had a chance to kind of skim through, in article IV 9 4, sorry, I can't read Roman numerals. In article 4, it's called compensation section. And on the SKIA side, it says 2-year proposal, 10% cost of living adjustment year 1 and 6% cost of living adjustment year 2. And what the district has proposed or said to that, I would say, is a 4-year proposal, 3.5% year 1, 3.5% year 2, and then reopen negotiations for years 3 and 4. With the 7 or 8% increase in inflation that we've seen, is that what it is? Yeah, that just isn't a livable wage for many teachers, as Noah has mentioned before, with his personal touch of how his parents, this is their 22nd year of teaching. They're music teachers, as Noah is also an amazing musician. Um, this is like the first summer that they feel like that they got through comfortably. And how they helped out younger teachers that they know with their rent or buying groceries because those younger teachers weren't able to hit that. And we're seeing that with the really low proposal from the district, which is a difficult, my personal opinion of why these negotiations have been so difficult is because teachers absolutely deserve a way higher raise and they deserve a livable wage as we've mentioned, but as the district has mentioned in their community conversation is just like how in debt we are and how if it's just I'm sorry, I didn't know what I was going to say about this, but the district's kind of arguing that we don't have the money for this, which is true, but we've also seen
To some degree.
to some degree but we've also seen a lot of like misspending with the last 2 years, especially with the inflation of money that we had after COVID, and then how that money was spent. And so this event is mainly to show our support for the teachers union and how students do care, students are watching, students are learning, trying to educate themselves. We want to say, but we also want our teachers mainly to have a say, or we want a say to support our teachers and how um I know that the union and this district had a like a negotiation meeting recently, and I'm just hoping that they keep open ideas and that they give justice to our teachers. And now we're gonna move on. Noah.
So this is an open question Q&A situation, which the district has not had. So if anybody has any questions that you would like us to answer, now is your time in front of everybody. We can also do like personal questions during discussion time.
But also, if we can't answer a question, we will kind of hand it off to Tyler, which is the union president here. And she and we thank all of our volunteers that are here have taken their time out of like just being home and relaxing for once. But if we can't answer a question, they will. And at the majority of their tables, there's at least like 1 to 2 facilitators that can also answer your questions. But the girl in the green sweater. That the district that the district is what?
Bargaining meetings.
Okay. Meetings isn't like a public event. The district does um do on Instagram the SKPS and Castañadas, the superintendent, her personal Instagram, she uploads videos, kind of giving updates and talking about like stuff that is happening. They also send out they have a section in the website, I believe, that's talking about that budget crisis situation, and that's where we found a lot of it. Also on their YouTube. No, I don't believe they live streamed any of the community conversations, but oh, they did live stream yesterday's public school board meeting that I mentioned, and they covered a lot of the information that they learned from those community conversations, which is where you can find a lot of that information. Wait, I'm sorry.
I was wondering if anyone in the teachers union, I don't know that much about it, but I was wondering if there's any specific goals like in the next few months that you're hoping to achieve, and because maybe there's something that we could potentially help with.
Somebody want to
Hand
take
the
that?
mic to you.
Tyler?
That's a great question. So, our goal is we're in mediation, which is a closed door process, and we have our Ask ESP, which represents our classified unions, Edie, also the president here as well. And these processes are closed, but our goal is to settle our contract in mediation. That is our goal. With that said, and Edie, are you okay if I kind of say the same thing? I think that's the goal for Ask as well. But with that said, our priorities, which thank you, folks, you did a great job illustrating from safety to autonomy to compensation to class size, caseload. These are our main priorities, and they cover several articles of our contract. Our membership as a whole, which we are almost a little over 2,300 members that belong to the Salem Kaiser Education Association and a couple thousand for the it's Association of Salem Kaiser Education Support Professionals, are classified, our brothers and sisters, also educators. They're your bus drivers, they're in your classrooms, they're all the people. So uh, both memberships have been really clear that we kind of have our bottom line. And if we don't get our bottom line, it will force us to take more action, and we'll kind of assess that as we go. So we are very hopeful that the district will meet us halfway. Anytime you bargain, at least with our philosophy, it's a lot like buying a car. You're going to go in really low, they're going to go in really high. You both have numbers in mind, and it's a little game and a dance to get to those numbers. We're just hoping those numbers come somewhat close because we want to keep schools open. But we are losing educators across the board on a regular basis. And we can't afford to continue to lose our qualified. That's not good for our students. And we've had turnover after turnover after turnover for the past couple of years. Many of them are leaving the profession as a whole, but many are going to other districts that do have some smaller class sizes or do have some professional autonomy, or they don't have the same issues with students with high needs and lack of resources. So we want to keep people here, and this is what our goal is to hopefully settle that.
Yeah. Hello? Yeah. Any other questions?
In a similar vein, what are some ways that students can show support for their teachers?
Um, Honestly, that's a good question that we haven't thought about too much. For
At-
us, that meant doing this. So
Attending this event is a
attending
great
this
start.
event is a good step.
The Yeah, honestly, our goal with this event, like our personal goal, is what we've kind of like told people a lot, is just like to educate and inform the majority of, or try to educate and inform as many people in our community as we can. Um, yeah, this event was to show another perspective because, as you know, the district hosted their community conversation. This is kind of like our, I want to say retaliation to it, but like our counter, like to show another perspective, to show that there is something going on. This is to show that, again, that students do care. Yeah, yeah, you can speak, like I said, for the public comments at the school board meetings. You can, I don't know how you sign up, but I'm sure someone here can answer that question, and that's 3 minutes on the clock that you can talk to them face to face. And as they mentioned, writing a letter to the Statesman Journal.
On a slightly less like super official level, if that makes you nervous, as a student group, we are working on getting at least one student from every high school right now to work together on planning events similar to this. Or we have friends at West that planned a rally with our the with Ask ESP and SKAA. Wow, that was. We also have a um we have an Instagram account now, SKPS Student Voices, where we will be posting updates about things. Just being aware and not ignoring the problem, I think, is the biggest thing
You
you
could
can do.
also attend, as we saw in yesterday's meeting that we keep referencing to. The district said that they're planning on hosting their next round of like community conversations sometime in February. If you could take the time out of your schedule to attend those and then maybe mention something you learned from this in their feedback, um, that would be great too. So the district knows that we know, you know?
Okay. Any other questions?
Is there any way to guarantee a solution for smaller class sizes among the districts?
Yes, there is. And that does take, it's a matter of funding and spending. We know that education always needs more funding because our society expects us to do all the things for all the people, but they don't fund us for that. However, we do believe that there are different priorities our district could spend money on, and one of them is to lower class sizes. I've been a teacher in this district for 25 years, and since the start of my career, I have seen class sizes rise, and rise, and there's been no attempt to lower them. So we are hoping to turn the tide. We have proposals in our bargaining to hopefully to get that because we've got to start making a difference. It's not going to happen all in 1 year, but if we don't make any effort to turn this train around, we are going to be at class sizes in 50s and 60s, and in a few more years, and it's just not acceptable.
Do you have anything to add to that?
So what she just said. Someone mentioned what else they can do as far as support. There's a we could establish a letter writing campaign that would go directly to the superintendent. Um, so we could send that out to you, Noah, um, and then you can pass it around and we can put it on our website as well. So anything that really impacts the teachers does impact classified staff as well. We are your bus drivers, your custodians, your instructional assistants, um, your technology, your clerical support, office managers, all of those folks. Bus drivers in particular are having trouble with dysregulated students on their buses and not getting the information that they need in order to help students and help others. And they are required to still drive their bus and manage a dysregulated student. So, workplace safety is critical for us and for SKIA as well. And another thing that's critical for us is workload, because when you um, let go of staff or you don't hire enough staff and they're not available, that workload falls on others. So many folks go through their day often without even getting a break or a lunch. So those are critical. We have proposals around workload and workplace safety and workers' compensation as well. So thank you for all being here tonight.
I don't know.
Thank you. I just quickly wanted to say hi and introduce myself. I'm Ashley Carson Cottingham. I'm the Zone 3 School Board Director. So I wanted to stand up and say hello and to express my gratitude to all of you for being here, and just reiterate that the board does want to hear from all of you. We listen, we read all the emails we receive. Several educators have reached out to me in recent months to do site visits to schools to see more hands on what each of you or what each of you is dealing with on a day-to-day basis, but also what students are seeing in their classrooms. And so much appreciation to the students tonight that have helped put or who led putting this together. It's really nice to have a student-led event. My apologies for being late. We did have another executive session tonight of the board, so I ran from that. But these are extremely difficult times. I obviously can't get into specifics of bargaining, but I just wanted to be here to be present so you know that I do care. I'm engaged, and I appreciate all of you so much. I believe in public education to my core. And I will make a pitch. I'm not trying to minimize what decisions we have to make right now and to get to an agreement and mediation, but we do need advocacy at a state and federal level around public education. And so I am free to make a pitch around that. We need more funding in public education, period. Yes, we have tough decisions locally. I'm not trying to skirt that, but we do not get enough money from the state legislature to do all the things that society expects our public schools to do. And we have kids who are still recovering from the pandemic and will be for a long time. We need more resources. And I think all of our elected officials need to hear that message. We need people to testify during the long session. And if there's an opportunity during this short session coming up next month. So just thank you very much. And I appreciate all of you.
I would
And
also
you
like
can
to
email
add.
us. Oh,
No, you're good.
the specific question about the logistics of how you come to testify or provide public comment for the meeting. The first meeting of every month, the agenda will be posted online, and you then go and sign up online, and then we're given all of the people, and there's a lottery system depending on how much time we have available, and then you would be selected from that lottery system. But if you don't get selected there, you can write an email, and we read all of that testimony or comment that comes in. So thank you. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I would also like to add that on December 15th, Sophia and I attended the student-led rally and had a meeting directly with the superintendent where we discussed information about the budget, which is part of what led us here, was getting more information. So we've only talked to one side, just as a fun comment on that.
And then a thing I wanted to remind everybody is that teachers don't have as much power in this, but the district has given their administrators roughly 20 to 30% raises. So if we wanted the money, it's right there. They just gave it to themselves.
Okay. So I just have one little thing to add. So we introduced what? Oh, sorry. Hello. So we introduced the president of SKEA, Salem Kaiser Education Association. And, but I also just wanted to give a shout out to the president of Ask ESP, which, as she mentioned, is our what?
Classified.
Yeah, is our classified staff here at Salem Kaiser. And as little just personal background on me, I wasn't born in Oregon. I went to Pringle when I was in kindergarten, coming from Mexico, as Mexico is my what? As Spanish as my first language, without knowing any English. And the I I didn't remember whether I had like a teacher or not to like help me out with that without like knowing like any basic English. But like my mom here testifying for me, like I never had a teacher that like helped me learn English, and I was kind of just put into like a straight all English learning class without knowing any English. So as you can imagine, for like a 5 to 6 year old, I think kindergarteners are, that would have been very confusing. So just as like a touch on that. And before going,
Um, Not entirely related, but I have albinism, which is a genetic disability that largely affects my vision. And this is the fourth state I've lived in, second that I've attended school. And I went to school in Kansas before this, and there were no disability services that that were accessible to me. I remember in first grade I was handed an iPad to read my books on, and nobody told me how to use it. So moving here was kind of super refreshing in the sense that we have a really good system for special education and just overall disability services in general. And I actually had to I was double booked tonight and had to turn down speaking with legislation because this was already scheduled on behalf of Willamette ESD's disability service group. So that was where I would have been if I weren't here. So it's been super important to me and my family, which is why we haven't left the district. Um, because I need to have stuff accommodated.
Yeah. And so I just wanted to leave with one little quote before we moved on to the next slide. And I'm pretty sure it was someone in this room. I cannot remember who specifically it was, but it's been a quote that just has like, it's so obvious, but you just like never think of it that way or the way it's phrased, I guess. And it's that specifically here in the district. Oh, that specifically here in the district, like our teachers' work environment is like our learning environment, our learning about it environment, students' learning environment. Like that's so important because when you hear teachers talk about like, oh, like, well, you don't hear teachers talking about it, but like when you hear how like teachers don't get paid enough and this and this and that, how they have too many students to deal with, you kind of just think about how they're complaining. But that's like that's what we come for every day. Like we learn in that environment that isn't great for them to teach in. So just putting that into perspective. Which our next slide is small group discussions. And so you do not have to answer these questions. If you want to use these questions to like start up the conversation and kind of use them to guide you, please go right ahead. We have an attendance and feedback form.
So the form, please complete at the end. It's just 4 questions. 2 of them are required. Just who you are, like how you relate to schools, and the other is if you attended a district community conversation earlier in the year. Our questions: what is important to you? Something we talked about or not doesn't really matter. Just things that are important to you that you want discussed. That's a discussion question that doesn't have to be answered in the Google form. Um, what did we say that stood out to you? So, what's your main takeaway from the event? That's important. Um, and then, what do I do now? So, this question was initially written in the perspective of the district's second round of community conversations in a month. What do I do now, now that I know the union side of things? Do I go to that event and talk about it? Do I tell my friends about it? Whatever you do, what is your plan now that you feel more informed?
Yeah, and then again, the info packet, which has the bargaining status, class size table, and a copy of the slides if you ever want to access them later. Just to give another shout out, our tech guy, Bryson Martin, he has set all this up, and we are actually live streaming right now. And this video will be available on Skia's YouTube, and then on the Instagram that Noah mentioned, SKPS Student Voices. It will also be posted on that account, and then probably our personal accounts as well. But um, yeah, so if you ever want to go back and watch this through, and then just again, that feedback form, it's like a feedback in attendance. Any questions, comments you have on like how we ran this event and would be greatly appreciated because we have never done this before. So we don't know if this is like really great for y'all, or maybe you guys have hated it. So there you go.
Once again, you can ask us questions. You can ask the facilitators at each table's questions. You can ask Tyler questions. We're all here. What was the other thing I was gonna say? Facilitators. Bryson went around and put something on the papers. I'm not really sure what it was. Um, to right, yeah, to to take notes on what
You
on what
discuss at your
yeah
tables.
the discussion main things that's super helpful to us to know what was discussed, what was important, but no pressure to write everything that is said down. But
Yes.
thank you for coming.
Is that what the next slide is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, back to stuff. Yeah. Oh.
I just want to say, let's give these two a huge round of applause. They reached out to us to get information They completely initiated it. And when we shared this with our members, I just want to say on behalf of our 2,300 licensed members, thank you. You actually moved people to tears to know that our students were even seeing us and hearing us and interested in helping. So thank you so much. It's very appreciative. And you did, again, great, awesome job.
Thank you. We're done.
Perfect. So now we're just going to break out into the small discussions, small group discussions, and we're just going to be walking around if you have any questions for us or Tyler or anything. Thank you. Grab a cookie.